Thank you for joining us. I'm sorry if we kept everyone waiting just a few moments. We are on item number 3 of our agenda, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, since our last meeting in November, we have a fairly heavy consent agenda this evening, so I'm going to try to get through it as quickly and efficiently as possible, but it has been a month since our last meeting. So item A is approval of minutes from November 9th. That was our last regular session. Can I ask for a motion to approve? Mrs. Bonish? Second, Mr. Talbot. All those in favor of approving those minutes, please signify. That would be unanimous, please. Thank you. Item B, we have approval of an IBM grant donation to the Wilmington High School DECA organization for $2,000. And per our school committee policy, donations in excess of $500 must be accepted by the committee. We received a nice letter addressed to Superintendent Benton from Mrs. Peters about the donation. We have a parent who works for IBM and was able to facilitate this donation. So if I could ask for a motion to approve this donation to DECA. Mr. Talbot, Mrs. Kane, second. All those in favor? Okay, let the record show that it's unanimous. Our second item is approval of a CASET award to the Wilmington World Languages Department for $1,000. Christmas has come early to Wilmington, apparently, which is excellent. And there's some information in our packet about the $1,000 donation. And it also mentions one of our students, Zoe Marzi, who is a junior, was awarded this scholarship. Can I have a motion to approve? Mr. Bjork, second. Mrs. Bonish, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. We have some warrants. We have G405, R206, R207, L14, L15, L16, L17. I believe all of us can vote on those, so I'll take a motion to approve. Item D. Mrs. Kane, motion. Mr. Talbot, second. All those in favor? That would be unanimous. Kim, thank you. Item E is payroll, and it looks like there's a lot here. Part of that is due to us not meeting for a month, and we're also just making sure that we've approved everything appropriately. So I'm not going to list all of them. They're on our consent agenda here. Could I have a motion to approve the payroll warrants, please? Mr. Talbot, motion. Second, Mrs. Bonish. All those in favor? One abstain, Mrs. Kane. Thank you. The next couple I think we can take together, warrant CB03 and warrant SPED 05, 06, and 07. Can I have a motion to approve those warrants, please? Mr. Mullis, thank you, the motion. A second. Mrs. Bonish, thank you. All those in favor? Okay, and we've got 2 abstains, Mr. Bjork and Mrs. Burns. And finally, warrants, food service 12. Could I have a motion to approve warrants FS 12, please? Mr. Bjork, the motion. Mrs. Burns, the second. Thank you, all those in favor. And that would be unanimous. All right, I think we did it. And our next item on our agenda is our student representative report. Ms. Ashley.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's been a while since I've seen you all. I hope your Thanksgiving was well. The high school's been as busy as ever. For starters, today the guidance counselors held 2 assemblies about the PSATs that the underclassmen took back in October during our interdisciplinary block. The class of 2017 will be selling candygrams at lunches starting last Monday and going through the 19th as a fundraiser for the class. Those always go really well. The Environmental Club has been and will continue to be raffling off 2 spots in the teacher parking lot for student carpools every week. They're doing this in order to help spread a strong message for helping the environment by cutting down on the amount of gas in the atmosphere. This week's winner was Sophie Consorti. The ski club registration is now open for all high school students. Ski club runs on Tuesdays from January 3rd, 2017 until February 7th, 2017. There's an amazing opportunity to speak Spanish during lunch on December 21st for students who want to improve their foreign language skills. And along with this, the WHS World Language Department has its Spanish flavor trip to New York this March. Students who are interested should be registering and should register by Friday, December 16th. And I believe that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday break.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your report.
That's
as
like
always.
unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Slip out.
And that gives us a good segue into our superintendent's report, and we're going to hear about Global Child.
We have one item on the agenda for this section. The Global Child Spanish classes were completed. 32 students took advantage of it, and registration for the spring semester is going on right now. Diana Hibbert has done an outstanding job with this program, and it's great to offer children in the community a second language to learn.
Any questions or comments on Global Child? No? Okay, great. Thank you. I'm glad to see that's continuing. Under new business, item A is the Facility Master Plan School Configuration Update.
So back a couple of months, you had a visit from Stephen Cecil, who is directing the master facilities plan for the town of Wilmington, and he had presented some proposals to you on different scenarios for the schools in the Wilmington Public Schools. And he was nice enough to ask me, when I came on board, what my thoughts were, and I am wanting to add a sixth option this evening to all of you, because frankly, I was a little bit surprised when I looked at the options that were presented. One of the things that I learned very quickly when I came to Wilmington 13 years ago was that there was clearly a reasoning behind how schools were located in town. And for those that are new to Wilmington, the town voted to build a new middle school, and the town was divided in half. And it was split into the north side and the west side. And since that time, while I was superintendent, we used to always get requests when people were looking to buy a house. Is it on the north side or is it on the west side? And that, to me, became very important to my thinking in answering Steve's question about what I would recommend going forward. I believe that that's something that has been here a long time, and people choose which side to live on based on whatever they hear in the neighborhood, and they really believe that it's a neighborhood feeling behind it. So my recommendation is that they're now getting to the point where they're going to be putting costs to all of these different projected plans, was for you to think about continuing with that split down the middle of town and going with a pre-K to 2 and a 3 to 5 on each side of town. So you'd go from 6 buildings to 4 buildings. My reasoning behind that is another thing that Wilmington has prided itself on for many, many years is transportation for all. In this scenario, you would be able to continue with transportation for all, and it wouldn't increase the cost. In all the other scenarios, my understanding is there was the thought that you would go to the state's legal requirements, which is transportation for students who are live 2 miles away. And I don't think that's part of the Wilmington culture. So I'm asking that you think about adding this option to the chart so that they could cost out, it would cut down on one transition. It also, you would save costs, obviously, on different services in the schools, but it also would keep the charm of Wilmington.
Mr. Talbot?
Yeah, I have one question. Under one of the plans here, the Woburn Street Elementary School, closed facility and leased to outside education provider.
So that piece is, Steve had put that in. I would go with the two buildings that need the most work. I frankly would probably recommend the Wildwood and the Boutwell
To close.
to close. Steve, can we ask Steve to comment?
Absolutely.
This was, what we would be doing is polling various people who have been both involved with the schools and with the school facilities to think through a wide range of possibilities. And apparently, at some point in time, we've been looking at the Wildwood School, for example. That facility is so outmoded that in our scenarios looking forward, if you were really to try to improve it, it would be probably better and more cost-effective just to build a new facility. You might use that site. But what would happen if you decide to consolidate and reorganize the grades in the schools overall, one of the things that we had raised was that Wildwood School accepted, the town would own some buildings that you might not need for schools, so what would you do with them? And someone had brought forward the idea that if the Woburn School was no longer being used by the town for schools, there might be other school uses that could occur there. So that's why it was put in the
I'm going with the fact that the only other kind of school system would be an alternative type school, which I know a lot of people are very against. You know, like charter schools. That's, you know.
One of the things that could, I know that the idea of SEAM leasing the space was brought up. SEAM is for children that need services that their districts can't provide.
Which
So it's
we
not
belong
charter, and we belong to SEAM, yeah, so it's not a charter school. It's
It's a collaborative school, so it's a public school for children who have to learn a different type of setting,
Okay.
general education. So a lot of, excuse me for interrupting, I didn't mean to take over. A lot of districts, you see it in a lot of larger cities, have, Braintree is one, Fall River is one. They have their own internal collaborative school, saves the town, and saves the town money and also creates a revenue serving a need. And so a lot of it's, it's very expensive to get up and running, but in the long run, it does this huge cost savings. And if I could just segue into something on, I have to say, in reviewing this last night, option 6 was the one that I would be most in favor of, and I think makes the most sense. But in saying that, I only had a couple of questions with regards to the north and the west, and the proposed of combining it to grades, adding, renovating and making addition for grades 3 through 5. And taking into consideration with our enrollment and it going down, my concern is that would it also be flexible to allow us, because there is a lot of building going on in our community, that if our enrollment does increase, especially in that grade, that we would have that flexibility and not be looking for space.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we can grow, can expand and,
Right.
and
Yeah, part of the problem today is that you are kind of full. You have 6 schools that are really full, and you have really no very difficult flexibility. So I think that one of the criteria that we think is really important is to increase the flexibility that you have and provide. If you have maybe more grades, part of that is just having more grades. If one of the grades is starting to grow more quickly and another one isn't, you can move things around with classrooms. But
other
yes, that's a
aspect-
key criteria.
excuse me for interrupting, I'm so
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
No, it's my fault, I apologize, chronic, fair warning. I think the aspect that I'm more concerned with is that as districts are being asked to do more for our students, social, emotional, it requires spaces that are private so that therapeutic pieces can occur. And there's a lot of other supportive programming that can occur. And you don't want to see, like for the Wildwood, for example, they've used art rooms that used to store art supplies. It's grown to the point where those art supply rooms were used for speech therapy or some other alternative because we're at one point growing out of the space.
Right.
Excuse me, so that's besides possible additional classrooms, it's just ensuring that those services that we're delivering and working towards delivering for students, we have that flexibility that we don't have to jockey for broom closets to have these services done.
If I might comment, I think the building that we're in is a perfect example of what will happen when we get to that point. And we worked with the architects and actually talked about flexible spaces so that there's lots of rooms in this building that can be used for different purposes. And in any new building or additions, you're seeing more project-based learning, driving the what classrooms look like. You're seeing more small group spaces like our small club rooms and dining rooms in the cafeteria, rooms that can be used for different purposes as needed. So that would all come into play.
And
The fun part, when we're
Granted,
no longer here, when you're
Putting
doing
the cart
that.
before the horse, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
biggest
Yeah.
concern with that,
One of the things that comes along with significant additions in renovations or new buildings is that you need to meet contemporary standards for schools as opposed to adapting your program to the facility that you have. So that's one of the shifts that happens when you start to really reinvest in the schools to provide that adaptability and flexibility.
thank you.
Great, thank you. Mrs. King?
I would like to see, because I've been following this for most of the meetings, but when you're talking about at least 4 of the different schools' major renovations, I'd like to see them delineated as to what are we talking about as far as renovations for each of the schools. And because sometimes it's easier to have a brand-new school than it is to be renovating everything. So I'd really like to know what we're renovating in those, if we decide. And I don't know, you maybe want to wait till we hone in on 1 or 2, but I think it's better to know all of the information before we go into this.
And what we're going to do after this, now that we're getting close to the right broad set of alternatives, is we're going to take each one of these scenarios, and then we're looking at those schools to say, what can be renovated, how big an addition would be, and if you do that, you're actually going back in the school. It's not just an addition that happens. You have to really rethink the school. There are a lot of good parts to many of these schools that it would be probably not cost-effective to remove. A lot of them are pretty good, or parts of them are good, but you really have to rearrange it. So we're going to provide a description and a scenario, and then a sense of what the cost comparisons would be. And so that's our task now, so that we can bring back that to the facility master planning, the overall committee, and to bring it back to you so that you can really see what this implies.
That would be excellent. And I will say that when I went over this, we've only just gotten this last item, number 6, but if we can do that, I think that makes the most sense, because you've got the older kids can help the younger kids, and I just think it seems like that would be a great way to go.
I think it's a good age,
Yes.
age
Yeah.
grouping.
Mr. Mueller?
Just to follow up on that question, so have you actually looked at those schools to see if structurally they can be added onto?
Yes, we have done a pretty thorough review of the building conditions as they exist today. And we haven't found, Wildwood being the exception we keep bringing up in terms of its shape, its age, its condition. But given what we understand about the buildings, the constraint we've got to check is, as much as anything, is the site. So the site's large enough, can they accommodate a significant increase in the population there, the teachers, et cetera. The buildings themselves, we think, could be adapted, but we're looking at it in more detail. And if there are specific difficulties, we'll bring them to your attention.
Great, thank you.
So I believe there's going to be a meeting in January when the schools are going to be discussed at the,
Yeah, we're going to do our first cut analysis of the various alternatives in the same way that we've done a first cut evaluation and are working with the committee on the other municipal facilities. So in January, we're going to focus on the schools and our initial thoughts, get their feedback. Of course, we'll be meeting with you. We have members that are on both committees. And the idea being that as we learn more about this, we want to make sure that that the full set of facilities and investments that the town may need to make in the future, want to make in the future, are brought forward as a cluster. And that will be happening later this winter and early spring so that the community as a whole can start to look at what's emerging and we can get good commentary.
Thank you, Steve, for coming.
Thank you very
Appreciate it.
much.
Yeah, one
Mr.
thing.
Talbot.
I just want, one of the things that I've been concerned about is making sure that all the schools are ADA compliant. Because I know that there's a few that are not, that I walked through that are not even close.
We've made that, we've called it sort of baseline. If you decide that you want to keep all the schools and fix them up in different ways, that we're saying that no matter what you do, they all should be ADA compliant from the start. And we're taking a look at what that baseline cost allocation might be.
Yeah.
We absolutely agree on that. Yeah, good point.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
So Paul and I will go tomorrow night for the town side, and then the January meeting, invite all of you. You don't have to. Thank you, Steve.
Great, thanks. Do we have a date for the January meeting yet?
I'm not sure.
Just to-
Hearing committee meeting is, I want to say, yes, we do. Let me just check real quickly here. Oh, it's 2017.
Right.
Oh, my
Comes up
goodness.
really fast, that's why I want to get it in the calendar.
Not quite fair, is it?
Get it on the radar.
It's the 19th, and it's currently scheduled for 6 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
And that's at the town hall, correct?
They've been moving back and forth, but town hall is, depending upon availability, town hall is where they most typically are. But I think it would be worthwhile, and I've made my own mistake on when and where these meetings are occurring. It's a good thing to make sure. it confirms.
I'll make sure.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next item is the fiscal year 18 preliminary budget presentation. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Ben.
It's my pleasure to present the superintendent's preliminary FY18 budget. I call this the wish list budget. This is gathering together all of the principals, central office leadership team, and hearing their wishes and dreams. Excuse me. Your mission asks that the Wilmington Public Schools provide for a challenging, relevant, personalized educational experience for all of our students, well-trained and highly qualified staff, and with the purpose of providing students with multiple ways to demonstrate individual learning and growth and prepare them for success in the schools. Wilmington is this. Public schools is a high-performing district where all students are provided with opportunities. Give me one second. The vision was established 3 years ago, and along with the vision of the core values of respect, inclusiveness, responsibility, and integrity. The reason I'm presenting all of this is because this is what the budget is based on. We want Wilmington school community to be a place where all students have an opportunity to learn through high-quality, rigorous curriculum and engaging, personalized instruction delivered in a safe, supportive, inclusive environment. In developing the budget, we need to remind ourselves of the strategic mission and of the objectives. Cultivating a shared vision for student success, facilitating collaboration and sharing of practices to expand knowledge base, providing clear and consistent performance expectations, aligning curriculum to the standards, meeting the diverse needs of all our students, developing and administering high-quality assessments, creating an inclusive educational system that demonstrates universal acceptance promotes a sense of belonging, and ensures all students are fully included in the least restrictive environment. Supporting students' behavioral health needs, not optimizing students' physical health and safety. Continuing to ensure a transparent and participatory budget process, and developing clear and consistent processes and procedures, and provide documentation to end users and constituents. I've included all of this in this budget presentation because I have to commend you on your lofty goals. However, I will say that I believe that the initiatives that you have undertaken, for me personally, are overwhelming, thinking of myself as a classroom teacher. So this budget is going to slow some of those initiatives down. You will see later on in the budget my recommendations. I really believe that it is important to provide strong, job-embedded professional development for our teachers whenever we introduce new programs. That budget had been cut the previous years, and I want to restore professional development funds so that teachers have the time and the ability to develop core curriculum for the students. I will be talking about it again, but I just want to say I think it is in the best interest of the students and the teachers if we slow down some of these initiatives. So the guiding principles of this budget are, we're committed to the system-wide goals. We're not throwing them out, we're just going to slow them down. We're committed to quality teacher-student relationships, acknowledge fiscal constraints in our budget. We certainly take pride in our well-maintained facilities, and I boast about the buildings every place I go. For the past couple of years, I've been working in a couple of other school communities surrounding districts, and they can't compare. The cleanliness of the Wilmington schools is just outstanding, and I condemn the Public Buildings Committee because they do an incredible job for us. So what really is the budget all about? Thomas Armstrong said in 2006 that the quantification of developing the means and the capacity to facilitate human development with a respect for each student's particular style and rate of learning, as well as an appreciation for the varied interests, aspirations, capacities, obstacles, temperaments, and backgrounds that serve as a framework within each child. That's what this budget is based on. Budgets for this interim school superintendent is not about money, it is about students and teachers and what we can provide for them. The rest flushes itself out as far as I'm concerned. The budget breakdown analysis, as you know, there's three components to any school budget, operating budget: Chapter 70, state aid, local contributions, and other funding sources. Presently, there's no kindergarten grant continuing to provide for, we've been using the funds to provide for ed assistants in each of the classrooms. And we have gotten word from Holly, who's been attending Title I meetings, that the Title I and the 2A grant will probably be cut this year as well. So we have taken that in consideration in developing the budget. It's too early to say what chapter is going to happen with Chapter 70. Jeff thinks will probably come out the same as we did last year. But as you know, that goes right till the end with the legislative itself. So what are the priorities in Wilmington? You have really admirable class sizes, and we want to protect that. Certain programs, direct service to students, and we want the continuation of the full-day kindergarten program the way it was developed with a full-time ed assistant in each of the classrooms. Major factors driving this budget are all of our contractual obligations, increased use of technology in the classrooms with the one-to-one program debuting this year and continuing next year, which will involve the 8th and 9th graders. More complex special ed IEPs, and along with the beautiful modernized high school goes increased utility costs. Highlights of the budget: maintaining current staffing levels, which will allow the school committee to support the class sizes that we all love at all levels. Something that I heard I happened to catch your previous meeting and am pleased to say I agree with. I'd like to reinstate a part-time library media specialist at the Boutwell and the Wildwood schools and a full-time library media specialist at the middle school. And we are doing this with the only cost being a .2 addition, and I'll tell you how we're doing it. The librarian at Shawshene is full-time, but really only needs to be there 4 days to fulfill the contractual obligations, so she would move to the Boutwell for 1 day a week. The Wildwood will be the cost. There's a part-time library media specialist at West who's willing to add on a day. She will spend a day at Wildwood. And the Director of Technology has given up a tech position in order for us to supply a full-time library and media specialist at the middle school. Next, reinstate professional development funds to support our staff with strong, valuable, and appropriate professional development opportunities. You're going to see later on in the budget that we cut out textbooks for foreign language because the foreign language department actually would rather have the money to do summer workshops and develop their own curriculum. The global studies, we have Linda Peters is really leading the charge around project learning at the high school, and we have social studies teachers that are working to introduce a new course based on project learning. We want to have the funds to provide for the teachers to do that work. In addition, in looking at the professional development line item for the past 2 years, there has not been any funds for teachers to go to workshops. That has all been cut out, and I'd like to bring that back. Because to me, you need to feed the teachers. And you feed the teachers by providing them with professional development work that they can come back and embed in their teaching. Next, we need to ensure that all legal mandates are funded, special ed, homeless transportation, ELL. This is very exciting. Because of the fact that we're doing one-to-one, I met with Julie Kelly, who's one of our tech integration specialists, and I talked about the idea of establishing a tech academy for students in the summer that would be self-supporting. It would be just like our sports camps. Sorry, Tim, we're going to be maybe taking a little bit of funds, students from your group, but we will work with you. But there are students out there that are not interested in athletics, thinking of the incoming 8th graders that might want to get a hold of their laptop, their Chromebook ahead of time and really learn how to use it. We have teachers that are excited to teach it, and it would be self-supporting. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed put in a requirement 3 years ago that all teachers need to be certified in English language learning. And for the past 2 years, there have been free SEI, Sheltered English Immersion training, provided for some of the teachers in Massachusetts. Unfortunately, the way it's worked is the number of spots for teachers to take classes is based on the number of ELL students you have in your community. And because we have a smaller amount, many of the teachers that really wanted to take the class for free were not able to. So we are very fortunate to have Sue McDonald on our staff, who is a certified SEI trainer, and she's willing to provide training this summer for teachers in Wilmington, and we would open it up to surrounding communities who would pay for that training so that it would, again, be self-supporting.
Would Wilmington staff need to pay for that? Because I remember at one point, the Department of Education wouldn't allow Susan to do these trainings without, and so,
So now we're over that piece.
okay.
And now, so what we're hoping to do is to have, hopefully no cost for Wilmington teachers, but maybe a minimal cost. It depends on how many teachers from other communities we can get to come in and pay tuition.
That would get a lot.
We need to fund all contractual requirements, including utilities, union contracts, transportation contracts. I received a few letters when I arrived here about some concerns about the cost of supplies at the middle school. And I know over the years, because the budget has been tight, that the supplies have been cut, but it's gotten to a place where middle school parents are being asked to spend a lot of money on supplies. So I have put money in this budget, and what I hope to do is take a survey of all the teachers in the spring of what items they are requesting from students and find a happy medium so that we are covering more of those costs. Because of all the levels, that's the place where we're really, I think it's inequitable in what we're asking parents to send in. So those are the highlights of this budget. Who are we? We have 3,463 students, grades pre-K to 12, 476 and a half staff members. 93% of our high school students go on to higher ed. We have 30 students this year whose first language is not English, and we have 70 students who are in out-of-district placements. So the budget this year reflects some staffing changes. Prior to the start of the school year, there was a net increase of 4.6 staff, some reduction of teachers and additions of ed assistants. In this budget, there is a request for an increase of 0.2 additional staff, because, as I explained earlier, we're taking all of the addition by, I call it addition by subtraction, adding on without costing you any more money. So the whole library program is actually only going to cost you 0.20 of a staff member. So that's the staff. Step and lane changes includes all of the contractual increases that teachers moving on their lanes based on number of years in the system and degrees, new positions, salary increases. We are adding in $107,000 to cover the grants that we're losing. Longevity. So the salary column, we're requesting a 4.12% increase. With regards to non-salary changes, curriculum and curriculum supplies, we're looking to build that, that piece up. Included in that is, for the past last year, you were paying for the math program out of the capital. It really should not be in the capital because it's an ongoing program. So that has been moved into the operating budget where it belongs. The textbook decrease, that's, we talked about, we're not funding the foreign language textbooks. We feel that it's better to develop online learning and having the teachers do it for better ownership. Some increase in professional development, which I already talked about. Transportation, general ed, and homeless, I mean, that's, you know, a running target. That's the best educated guess we can have. We never know what it's going to be. Electricity, I talked about, that's the high school, and so that's a 4.23% increase. So what does that all add up to? Your FY17 budget, there's an increase of 4.12% in salary, increase of 4.23% in non-salary, for a total increase of 4.15. Again, preliminary wish list, we don't expect to get this. The next slide just shows the total increase in this budget is $1.5 million. I'm sorry for, you can't read the capital. I can explain it. The capital budget for FY18 We are, and I know I am disappointing some, but I really feel that we need to slow things down. You have science initiative at the middle school level. I believe that we need to continue to pilot it before making a general decision. I am postponing the language arts writing, Lucy Calkins' writing initiative. I think that the teachers need more time to learn to do the reader's workshop before we move on. We are moving the tech ed engineering replacement. That's been put into the operating budget. So we're looking at telephone system, continuing to do the replacement. Paul, what schools are up? Do we know?
The telephone?
Yeah.
It's going to be middle school, I believe, for this year,
Okay.
or 18, FY 18.
Elementary switch replacement project, another laptop cart, and laptop battery replacement, and replacing computers in the pre-K to 3 labs.
Excuse me.
Mr. Talbot?
The replacement at the school, the switch replacement project for 3, what happens if that school gets shut down? I mean,
Well, I know that with the old high school, a lot of all the new switches we recycled,
oh, okay.
yes.
So we're just going to recycle?
Yeah. Yeah.
On this capital, this is what was given to the town back in early November. Since then, as the superintendent mentioned, when we meet with the town, we're going to recommend that some of these things come out of this. So again, this is what was presented or given to the town. We're going to, as the superintendent said, the science program, we're going to recommend to the town that we just take that out. We'll recommend the math program as well. So when we talk to the town, we're going to pare that down a little bit, just with what the superintendent had said. But this is what the town has currently.
So I'm sorry, what were you doing with the math curriculum piece?
We have moved that expense into the operating budget.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, as Paul said, the next steps, we actually have a meeting with the town manager tomorrow to firm up numbers. I always believe it's give and take, and the town's very good to us. Very few superintendents have the luxury of having a town that carries the buildings maintenance in their budget, carries the insurance in their budget, so we're very, very lucky that it works out that way. So we'll work with Jeff tomorrow to come up with a number that we all think is fair, and then I will come back to you in January with the final recommendation. Before I open up to questions, I do want to acknowledge all of the extended leadership team that is here this evening, that has worked hard. They all have wishes and understood where I was coming from, and although it's difficult to slow down programs, I think people understand where I'm coming from. I have to particularly thank my Director of Administration and Finance, Paul Ruggiero, and his assistant, Jackie Raffi. They have done yeoman's work since I walked into this place November 3rd. We haven't stopped. They worked really hard to help me get this budget to you this evening. Lastly,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to conclude by saying that the budget work is really based on the belief that the most important interactions that take place are between the teacher and the student. I believe that firmly. We have labored to build a budget that supports the mission of the Wilmington Public Schools. This morning, I was driving to work, and it dawned on me that it was the 4th anniversary of Sandy Hook. And on that day, 20 beautiful children were lost and 6 incredible educators. And it caused me to take pause and to send a note out to the staff. And I told them that it was a reminder about the incredible work that they do every day in the classroom. And we need to remind ourselves of that and thank our staff for the work that they do. Life's too short, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We should never forget Sandy Hook, and we should never forget all the incredible work that's going on in the Wilmington Public Schools every day. So, thank you.
Great. open it up to questions. Mr. Mullis?
Quick question, Paul, can you remind us what the increase was for FY '17?
4%.
4%?
The past 2 years has been
Okay.
4%.
So this isn't very far off as far as,
This is a good starting point. In the past couple of years, we've been at this meeting around 6%, so we're
yeah,
in pretty
that's
good shape.
what I
but-
was remembering.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mrs. Kane?
I always ask about this because I can't figure out where it is, but you know, in the middle school, the technology group that every year they come in and we have the open house, et cetera. I don't know where they get their supplies, and if they're out of their supplies, and,
That's the $60,000 that we're moving from the capital into the operating budget to replace the equipment in that room.
oh, good, because I think some of it's not working right now. And I have always, since we've started that, I think it's a unique program, and it should be one of the feathers in our cap, in a sense. So,
Well, you were doing STEAM before anybody was even talking about it. in middle school.
exactly, yeah, thank you.
I know there was one BCBA that left, right? Or do we only have one BCBA in district now?
Two.
We have two. Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments, concerns about the preliminary budget? Okay. Mr. Bjork?
I'll just say that this, I do think this is a great starting point. You know, every year I go through this, and it's way over my head, but, yeah, I try to get through the numbers, and it just amazes me what you guys are able to do. And I think I like the priorities that I'm seeing in this. I love seeing, and I know Peggy's going to agree with me, and I think everybody, I love seeing these media specialists coming back.
Yeah, and that was something that we had talked about, so that's great that we were able to do that. Mrs.
Especially
Burns?
the plug for professional development. I think it's
Yeah.
more so important. And I just want to extend my thanks for putting together such a cohesive and layman booklet for the likes of Steve and I. I really do, I greatly appreciate it, and it was very clarifying, and I'd like, again, to piggyback with what Steve said, I do like how the priorities are set, and I appreciate the clarification of those initiatives that we are going to start forward with, and again, I think it's important to say, once again, that it's not that we're giving up on the other initiatives that were started, but I do think it's a more cohesive and effective and efficient way in the long run in serving both our staff and students in the manner that they both deserve.
Mrs. Kane?
I'll just add a ditto to that. I feel like, for one thing, the school committee is of the same mind, and I think that's fabulous. And I think the fact that you could come in so quickly and come up with this budget, and with the help of Paul, I know he was so excited to have someone who knew what they were doing come with us. But it really it takes a lot of relief off of our shoulders, because we all took this so personally of what we wanted to see happen, and it is happening, and it's thanks to you and the relationship that you have, and I see Jackie over here coming to meetings and everything. It's really neat. So thank you all for your hard work. You're doing a great job.
Great, thank you very much. It's excellent. Our next item agenda is public comment. Lots of people in the audience, but. All right, great, thank you. Any subcommittee reports under other reports? Item 10. Any subcommittee reports? Mrs. Burns?
I'll keep this brief, but the Wellness Advisory Committee did meet in mid-November, and I have to say, I'm so energized by the creative and imaginative way that they go around to problem solving. Again, to reiterate, we are creating a 3-year goal, and I had my notes somewhere. Forgive me. We're still working towards that piece, and with each meeting, just the dynamic think tank that it comes off from it. We're making steady progress, and what we'd like to see, how we expect to get there, and the challenges we may face in getting there. And I just am very appreciative of the facilitators of the group Because I think that's a big, and Doreen Crow and Mr. Maxon, I think that's a huge piece for the effectiveness of that committee, and I just enjoy being on it.
Great. We'll look forward for future updates, I'm sure, right? Mrs. Kane?
And I have an update from the CPAC.
Excellent.
The CPAC is now on Facebook. You know how I love that. But I'm the wrong person saying that. But I love how they're using it. They're doing a really great job. Please like our page, Wilmington, Mass. CPAC. Okay, they're going to use this page to send out information only. They hope to be able to provide families with more information this way. They will not use the page as a way to communicate issues or discuss personal cases. Any communication should be emailed to the CPAC at wpsk12.com. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, they're always so organized and having all kinds of projects, and having all kinds of speakers. And that's one issue, but the other is I love this, they have a parent caregiver support group. And in this, they have coffee, they meet at Panera. How nice is that? And they share ideas, challenges, and dreams in an informal and friendly atmosphere. Each meeting will have a topic, however, feel free to come and get support or support others, even if the topic doesn't interest you. But I really think when you see the topics, you'd be interested. On Thursday, December 15th at 8:30 a.m., their topic is the anxiety follow-up from the anxiety workshop on December 5th. Then they'll have one in January on Wednesday, the 11th, and the topic will be how to organize your IEP binder. So that sounds like that would be interesting for people. On Wednesday, January 25th at 8:30, they go from morning to night. January 11th is at 6 p.m. January 25th is at 8:30. Review of parents' notice of procedural safeguards. These meetings will take place at Wilmington Panera Bread in the back conference room. And for more information, you can email CPAC at its email address. And Joe is here, who is basically, you run the support groups. Would that be right?
Yeah, and I
basically,
know
you're
Christine's been helping out this year.
Yeah, Christine. I think it's good for people to see who you are. It would be nice if we have Joe and Christine's there. Yep, Christine Nelly. So they're doing such a good job. They're offering so many things that parents could use. And so I really hope for them that more parents are able to attend some of these things. But thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Mrs. Kane.
Christine.
Any other subcommittee reports? No? Okay. Correspondence? I believe we've had no correspondence. Okay. Future meeting dates and agenda items. Get a little break over the holidays, and we're looking at our next meeting in January will be 2017, January 11th. 2017 is our next meeting, and our second meeting in January is January 25 of 2017. There we go. Great, thank you. And with that, I'll call for a motion to, Mrs.
Usually in
King.
January, we meet with do we know when Mr. Hull is going to make his presentation?
The 23rd? Right now, it's the 23rd.
Okay.
And that's the town manager's budget
That's why we'll
presentation
do the budget on the 11th.
on the 11th, okay.
Can I make two quick announcements?
Absolutely.
Since I have an audience, I tweeted out earlier tonight, the temperatures are going to be very, very cold in the next couple of days. Remind parents, please, dress your children warmly. Very concerned about what the wind chill factors are going to be like tomorrow and Friday. And lastly, just want to wish everyone a wonderful holiday. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Christmas.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Oh, I got two, stereo. Mr. Mullis, I'll take you as the motion. Mrs. Burns, I'll take you as a second. All those in favor? Wonderful. Thank you very much for attending. I appreciate the support.